Do you remember when Cole shared that Tupac confided in her on the day he died, telling her he planned to leave death row, sign with Quincy Jones, and take her along?
Yeah, I actually did know him, and he wanted to sign me to Quincy when he was with Kadada, Quincy Jones' daughter, and he was gonna leave death row and go to sign with Quincy, and he wanted me to go over there because he said that death row is not the place for kids. You know what I'm saying? That's what he was saying. So, but just unfortunately, on our way to Vegas when we went that time, he didn't come back from that.
Keyshia is being called out by people like Suge Knight, who argue that it's impossible Tupac would have shared such plans with her, especially since she was only around 13 or 14 at the time.
The reason why I know it not to be true is that Keyshia get a lot of pressure. What I mean by that, when people go to talk to a potato head, Steve Harvey. When they go talk to Steve Harvey, he tell them don't mention me, mention this person, mention that person. But I feel I knew Pac better than anyone knew Pac. That's how tight our bond was. And shit, at that time, 90% of the time, when we together, and if he had a conversation with somebody on a one-on-one, I would know.
Keyshia is facing criticism from figures like Suge Knight, who argue that it's hard to believe Tupac would have shared such personal plans with her, especially considering she was just 13 or 14 at the time. People are questioning how she could claim such closeness with Tupac while later betraying him by working with his rivals. Kesha's involvement with Diddy and Bad Boy is seen as a major contradiction, given the tensions between Diddy and Tupac, especially after the infamous East Coast-West Coast rivalry and the history with Death Row. Critics point out that if Keyshia were truly close to Tupac, there's no way she would have aligned herself with those who were part of the crew that hurt him. For some context, Keyshia didn't initially plan to become a singer. As a child, she wrote and performed raps and was encouraged by friends to pursue singing. She began taking her music seriously around the age of 9 or 10. Her determination led her to meet MC Hammer when she was 12, hoping he could assist her with her music. It was Hammer who introduced her to Suge Knight and the team at Death Row Records. At the time, Death Row was working on Tupac's All Eyes on Me album, which meant Keyshia was often around Tupac. Keyshia has claimed they were close, to the point where he confided in her about his plans to leave Death Row and sign with Quincy Jones. However, it's important to note that Tupac and Quincy Jones didn't exactly start off on good terms. Tupac publicly criticized Quincy in an interview, touching on Quincy's interracial relationships and his mixed-race children. This led to an article by Rashida Jones, Quincy's daughter, who took aim at Tupac, questioning his moral compass and his disrespect for her father. Later on, after a tense period, Tupac and Quincy's daughter Kadada met at a nightclub, where Tupac mistakenly approached Kadada, thinking she was Rashida, to apologize for his earlier comments. This encounter led to an unexpected romance between Tupac and Kadada. Despite Quincy initially being skeptical, he eventually warmed up to Tupac and the two developed a close relationship. Keyshia claims Tupac had planned to move forward with Quincy in his career, and during a conversation with Fat Joe, she opened up about the night Tupac died. According to Keyshia, Tupac told her he was preparing to leave Death Row and sign with Quincy Jones. He even tried to convince Keyshia to sign with Quincy as well, telling her that Death Row was no place for a young person.
Yeah, I actually did know him, and he wanted to sign me to Quincy when he was with Kadada, Quincy Jones' daughter, and he was gonna leave Death Row and go to sign with Quincy. And he wanted me to go over there because he said that Death Row is not the place for kids. You know what I'm saying? That's what he was saying. So, but just unfortunately, on our way to Vegas when we went that time, he didn't come back from that.
Keyshia Cole has also stated that she was 15 at the time of Tupac's death, recalling how, around her birthday, she received earrings from Death Row Records. She remembered the night Tupac died, saying her mother had to pick her and her brother up from Suge Knight's house because a lot was going on. For context, her brother and Tupac were close, often rapping together in The Outlaws. Keyshia recalled that they all drove to Vegas from LA, with Tupac in the car with Keyshia, while Suge and her brother were in another car, and Keyshia and others in a separate one. She reflected on how they were just kids, and Tupac didn't like the drama surrounding that period. Keyshia also mentioned that Tupac had planned to do a song with her the night he was shot in Vegas. She felt it was odd because when he told her he wanted to work with her once they returned to LA, it seemed like he knew he wouldn't make it. She recalled Tupac giving her advice, telling her not to worry, that she would be a huge star, and warning her about the challenges of being beautiful, as it could attract love, but also cause harm. He urged her to stay focused, always read, and value knowledge, which he said could never be taken away. Keyshia asked why he was speaking this way, but never got a direct answer. While Keyshia's recollections are poignant, many have called her story into question over the years. Danny Boy, for example, has been one of the critics, saying there's no way Tupac would have confided such plans to a 13 or 14-year-old.
He ain't told us. Everybody's close to Pac when he died. Everybody. That's all you hear. Me, I feel Pac. That's what people do. But Keyshia Pac went to how old was she? 12, 13-year-old?
Right.
He let her hear some shit. Really got him hurt. You wasn't just gonna walk and just say anything in front of anybody. Especially something I'm finna leave Suge in front of a 12, 13-year-old.
Danny Boy also stated that Tupac wouldn't have considered working with Quincy Jones, as Quincy had never entered the rap game. According to Danny, it didn't make sense for Tupac to entertain such an idea, though he did acknowledge Tupac's deep love for Keyshia, believing they would eventually marry. However, Danny firmly rejected the notion that Tupac would have confided in Keyshia about leaving Death Row, especially given her age. He argued that Tupac wouldn't have shared something so significant that could have put him in danger. Others have pointed out that given Tupac's history with Quincy and the rumors circulating at the time, it's unlikely he would have signed with him. Interestingly, there was an interview where Tupac reportedly said that Quincy had asked him to collaborate, but the audio from this interview mysteriously disappeared from the internet. Despite this, several people, including Death Row bodyguard Reggie Wright Jr., have confirmed the existence of the deleted audio. Reggie discussed it on the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast, claiming Tupac had mentioned that Quincy wanted to have relations with him.
Now, I don't know if you remember this. We asked Mopreme Shakur, about this audio. I don't know if you ever heard this audio a long time ago with Tupac. I can't find it nowhere now. Where he was pretty much saying, I don't know if it was Davis or one of those guys.
It was Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones, right?
Oh, yeah.
Quincy Jones wanted to, he offered to uncensored over here. You ever hear anything about that?
Well, that was the reason that Tupac met Keyshia.
Right.
One of the daughters took offense to it.
Yep.
And was mad about that. His other daughter. And Pac went to apologize for saying that to him. And he didn't realize that it wasn't Keyshia. It was another daughter that had responded to him about that. And Pac went to man up and apologized for making that statement about Quincy. Now, Quincy was there. Quincy, Will and Tevin Campbell and all of that, for people that's not from the 90s, those allegations was out there about Quincy.
Yeah.
They've been out there.
Some people believe that Quincy Jones was capable of asking Tupac to hook up with him, citing past incidents. For example, Johnny Mac once talked on Foxhole Radio about attending a party hosted by Quincy, where he claimed he asked him to come into a room. When listeners pressed him for more details, Johnny said he didn't want to discuss it further. However, months later, when Quincy's name came up again, he reiterated the same story. Professor Griff also raised eyebrows when he released his book, where he claimed Quincy was involved in setting up the rings in Hollywood. Griff said Quincy had connections with a magazine financed by Warner Brothers and others who helped orchestrate it. He also touched on the mysterious disappearance of Tupac's audio, reinforcing the idea that something suspicious was at play.
When Tupac came to Hollywood, it was the homosexual ritual. This is where the homosexuals came out against it, but I didn't mind. I wasn't talking about homosexuals. I'm saying there's a homosexual ritual that they go through in the Illuminati secret societies, and it is. So when I mentioned that about it marrying itself on to hip-hop, they said, well, can you prove it? Yeah. Go back and go online and read where Tupac said he was asked by Quincy Jones to when Tupac said no, that's when Tupac was marked for death. Why? Because Tupac was engaged to Quincy Jones's daughter. Quincy Jones's daughter was best friend was Aaliyah. Aaliyah was engaged to Dame Dash. Now, if y'all follow these people back,
The rumors surrounding Quincy Jones was so widespread that in an interview with Asterisk, the New York Times Asterisk, Quincy was directly asked if he had any involvement in Tupac's death because he supposedly refused to sleep with him. Quincy responded by saying, "Man, this is the biggest age of haters I have ever seen in my life. I've been called a blonde lover, a gay, everything. I don't care, man. Imagine my daughter being engaged to Tupac and me trying to make love to him. I'm not no man. I'm a hardcore lesbian, are you kidding? All my life? All my life." He went on to dismiss the allegations, but the rumors were so intense that people questioned the truth of whether Quincy was trying to hook up with Tupac, which made the idea of Tupac signing with him hard to believe. In interviews like the ones in Asterisk, GQ Asterisk, and Asterisk Vulture Asterisk, Quincy's catness also raised suspicions about his character, which made it even harder for some to accept that Tupac would leave Death Row to sign with him. If Tupac was indeed planning to make that move, many wonder why he didn't say so at the time. As for what Tupac allegedly told Keyshia, Suge Knight, who claimed to be closer to Tupac than anyone else in his final days, rejected her story. He said that if Tupac had been discussing such major decisions, he would have been the one to know. Suge also stated that Tupac wasn't strapped to death row and could have left whenever he wanted. If Tupac were planning to backstab Suge believed he wouldn't have been sharing those plans with a 14-year-old girl. Furthermore, Suge pointed out that if Keyshia were as close to Tupac as she claimed, there's no way she would have gone on to work with Diddy and hang out with rivals, especially knowing everything they did to Tupac.
I'm not going to go do a song with somebody that I know that was against Pac, and Pac was against them. And guilty conscience shows it all. I don't have a guilty conscience.
At the time of Tupac's death, he reportedly had just $100,000 in his account, despite making millions for Death Row Records. Many of his associates believed Death Row was aware of Tupac's desire to leave the label, leading to numerous conspiracy theories about the label's potential involvement in his death. So maybe Keyshia had a point when she claimed Tupac wanted to leave, but whether he told her those plans is debatable. Keyshia often emphasizes how close she was to Tupac, but rarely addresses the question of betrayal. What do you think? Is it possible Tupac actually told Keyshia about his plans to leave Death Row? Or did she exaggerate their relationship? And what about Keyshia hanging out and working with Tupac's rivals, like Diddy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.